That's a beautiful story. I gotta ask, just before we leave this topic, when it got bad between Shaq and Kobe, and they ultimately decided to go their separate ways, and Kobe said, "No, I want to run the team." Shaq has always said that it was all calculated. They were really friendly. They were just pushing his buttons on the basketball court. It was never like that. I've heard other people say, no, these two gentlemen had some issues. How was it towards the end of Shaq and Kobe's run in LA, if you know anything about it during that period, if you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the toughest thing about it was there was enough room in that room for them both to coexist. They won back-to-back championships. And it's funny you bring all this up, all this Laker talk. I was just at the Lakers practice facility on Saturday. We took our team. So my team, I coached basketball along with Jesse Buss. Who is Jesse Buss? One of the Lakers owners. So his son, Jaden, my son, MJ, they're kind of like our 1-2 punch on our basketball team that hasn't lost a game in 3 years. Let me stop. Wow. All right, so we're doing pretty well so far, so good. Let me stop. So we always take the kids up to the facility. They're amazed when they see LeBron's shoes and AD shoes and just playing around. But when you're there, you're just flooded with all the Kobe images, Shaquille O'Neal images, and all the other greats. They could have existed under the Lakers brand and continued to rip off championship after championship. But what started to happen was we are before social media in terms of attention is currency. Like you could be famous in LA and got $5 to your name, but guess what? That feels like you got high value. So they start playing the fame game on Kobe and Shaquille O'Neal. Basically, whose team is it? And it was weird because, well, obviously, wasn't it Shaq's team? He's the most dominant force. He's the finals MVP.
Older,
he's the guy. Yeah, right. But then Kobe's drafted to this team where he's traded to this team. And Kobe's like, okay, can I get mine? Can y'all say my name first, not just Shaq and Kobe? Can you say Kobe and Shaq? No? Okay. Well, can it be, I'm on the same level because you see me coming. And it was always perceived in attention that it was Shaq and then Kobe. Right. Well, imagine if you're, as you would say, Charles, the number 3 player of all time. You didn't say Shaq was top 3. You said Kobe. So imagine that dude is sitting there looking like, everybody keep talking about this dude. He good. He great. But he ain't working like me. He probably ain't better than me if y'all let me shine. And that's what happened. Kobe, the drive of Kobe, and the fact that Shaq could casually go out there and still own the court was just too much, man. It was oil and water. It was two different styles that weren't going to complement each other off the court more than it did on the court. So it came to a head. A lot of beefs. That's why every rap group breaks up. Who getting the most shine? It's the same stuff. Right. And Shaq got way too much more shine, way more shine than Kobe.
I appreciate the story. Now that we're on Kobe, I want to segue. Kobe was a hard worker. He played 75 plus games, God knows how many years. A guy that would leave it all on the floor. I look at the current state of the NBA today. There was a new rule that the NBA put in place. I'm sure you heard about this new 65-game rule, which says that in order for you to be eligible for certain postseason awards like All NBA, Defensive Player of the Year, MVP, blah, 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 you need to play a minimum of 65 games, this according to Athletic, with a minimum of 20 minutes in those games. NBA players are not hollering and screaming and this and this and this is unfair. Joel Embiid gets injured. He's out of the conversation. Given that we just finished talking about Kobe, you said LeBron is one of the top 3, the greatest player of all time. He's an Iron Man. He's somebody that shows up when he's healthy. He's going to play. He did that for 15 plus years. What do you think about players today complaining about a rule that was created because they were sitting out games when they were perfectly healthy, and then they agreed to it in the new CBA? What do you think about players complaining about this rule?
God, I hope I can say this concisely where people could understand. We know these players are complaining now because we know the players of yesterday didn't complain. Now, they actually did complain, but they didn't have the same outlets. They didn't have the same type of compensation. They didn't have the same levels of options. So what we now look at and what we now hear is something that we didn't hear before, but was still being said. And so we give all the praise to Granddaddy and them because they had to go up the hill both ways, you know, Granddaddy and them who had to sledge through all the troubles. And then we look at the kid who has it easier but still achieving, and we say, nah, you can't be the same as him. They're tougher, they're better because they had it harder. That's just not how the world spins. I will say this, that the NBA is in a pickle, and they know it. To mandate 65 games in 20 minutes is now caught up to them because they're already seeing a potential MVP suffer from the same rule that's supposed to make the game bigger and greater, not hurt the game in terms of taking down one of its stars, one of its poster kids in terms of what they try to market. But this is the thing about it. If you look at this world, and it's the same thing with the NBA, that perfect is the enemy of good. We all know that. So we're not going to have a perfect system. And there are no solutions, just trade-offs. So they try to solve how we going to motivate players to go out there and play all these games. You can't. Oh, guess what? You end up doing a trade-off. So now, by you trying to say, basically they were thinking, players, y'all don't want to play. Players, y'all taking these games off. And you know you could if you were tough like yesterday's players. And the players are like, some of us maybe, but most of us, nah, I'm hurt, bro. It's just that simple. And now it's caught up to him because a big dog is going to suffer. And he ain't the only one. It's going to start sniping more and more of these great players.
So what does the NBA do? What's the solution? Where do we go? I mean, they can't turn around and just say, well, okay, we scrapped the rule because Adam Silver's and these guys are going to look ridiculous if they did that. So do you think that the players have to find a way to just adapt to this new rule and just move on, or wait for the next CBA?
Look, I think the NBA allowed this to become too loud of a narrative. I think that they got themselves caught up in pandering and trying to say, yeah, we're listening to our fan response. So now, look, you look at it, 82 games is too much for these guys to play in the back-to-back schedule, and sometimes it gets really intense when, 7 games in 10 nights, et cetera. You've seen that before. They looked at it from the wrong perspective. You should have looked at it. If I'm running the NBA, I'd simply say casualties of war. This is what happens. You go to battle 82 times, guys are going to miss some games. And then the fan response, the way you deal with it is either you give an incentive package to these fans, you figure out some kind of, well, okay, here's a little compensation if a star doesn't go here or there, reduce ticket prices, et cetera. No money needs to be exchanged. You just kick back to the fans a little bit. They got the money to do it. They got the opportunities to do it. Instead of saying, no, we're going to change our rules and force our players to do something that they can't do physically because we think the fans are getting robbed on some of these big games. The craziest thing is this is all about the TV ratings and the TV companies complaining. They're like, dog, we got y'all on big game national TV and no LeBron's this. And then they put it on the fans. Like, the fans, no, it ain't the fans. It's 20,000 people at the game. It's us at home watching like, oh, man, I don't want to see this. But how many times has anybody ever went to a game, saw a star not playing, and don't watch? You stay. You're gonna stay. You stay, right? Yeah, so those people stop acting like it's them. And then the ones at home, I watch games like it's wallpaper. I mean, it's rare that it's a game where I'm like, shut up. No, MJ. No, I'm not getting my kids nothing to eat. Like, how many games is that? I think they blaming these fans because they got pinched by them TV networks who told them this ain't what we bought. This ain't what we signed up for. Y'all better fix it. They overcorrected it to me.